Hello and welcome to Letters Home, a story of a World War II B-17 pilot from Lowell, Michigan, in his own words, and he just so happens to be my grandpa. I'm your host, Annie Whitlock, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, my dad, Mitch McMahon, my aunt, Lori McMahon Summerfield, and Dale Croft from the Lowell Historical Museum.
In each episode of Letters Home, we're going to dive into letters written by my dad during his time in World War II that he sent to his parents, siblings, and friends back home in Lowell, Michigan. We'll be reading his own words and giving context as to what was happening in the world and in Lowell at the time he wrote these.
In this episode, Dad worries about Lotta's health. He takes a trip to Needles, California. And the big news is that the war ends in Europe.
Woohoo! All right.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into all that, we have a couple of corrections and additions. One of them involving the one-armed man who the Tigers gave up a hit to in 1945. It's a very random fact from last week's episode, but you have more about this player?
His name was Pete Gray. He was born Peter J. Weisner, was a one-armed outfielder for the St. Louis Browns in 1945. He lost his right arm in a childhood accident at the age of 6, but persevered to play professional baseball. He became a symbol of determination and inspiration to many, particularly those with disabilities during and after World War II. Gray's story is one of overcoming adversity. He learned to swing a bat left-handed and developed a unique fielding technique, tucking his glove under his armpit to catch and throw the ball.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Despite playing only one season in the major leagues, he played in 77 games, had 51 hits, and had a batting average of .218.
That's
which
amazing.
Isn't bad, right?
Right.
That's pretty.
For one arm? Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay.
I would say for
His
someone
time
with one
with
arm.
his time with the St. Louis Browns,
J.
though
Brown.
brief, resonated with fans and highlighted his remarkable story of perseverance. Gray's journey to the major league was not without its challenges. He faced skepticism and resistance from some, including being told to leave the field by a Phillies manager.
Wow.
However, his talent and determination eventually earned him a spot with the St. Louis Browns. He became a popular figure, visiting hospitals to inspire others with disabilities and sharing his story with a war-torn nation.
Wow, that's
Quite
pretty
a
great.
story.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. Yeah.
very cool.
And but he got a hit on us on opening day, 1945. So.
You remember Jim Abbott from Michigan?
Yeah.
Threw a no-hitter with one.
Oh, yeah. But hitting seems harder to me though. Feels like you need two arms to hit.
Well, he used the same technique,
I was
right? It
gonna
was
say
a
he would've
glove
hit.
underneath the armpit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You could throw with one arm.
Yeah,
He threw it under his arm and then,
But
He was left-hander.
yeah, hitting seems crazy to me, but with one arm. But
I'm not going to comment because I don't know enough about. I had a
Well, I'm
different
wondering
thought.
if Jim Abbott hit. He played in the American
Oh.
League, but I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either.
We don't know. Yeah, and so we have another. We're getting down a rabbit hole now
Yeah.
for the
One-arm
1940. We're going
athletes,
down
yeah.
deep into the 1945 Detroit Tigers game by game. That's not really what this podcast is, but it's relevant. Grandpa loved the Tigers, and you have another addition for us from another name, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so this was also mentioned last week. Who is this?
John Phelps.
John Phelps.
Who
Okay.
surprised your dad in Kingman
Remember.
because he was at the Lowell airfield himself, just a few
They just
hollers,
okay.
skips, and hollers away. So he was born in Cedar Springs in 1922. He lived there for 5 years, and then he moved to Lowell. He graduated from Lowell in 1941. He worked at Willow Run for 2 years before going into the Air Force in 1943, so he may have been down there with your
He
mom.
might have known
Glennon's sort of-
that, maybe because he mentioned that, right? Like
Yeah.
I'll have to tell Margaret
Yeah.
that I ran into John Phelps.
I
Maybe
bet
they
you-
did
yeah.
know each other.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. He became a pilot in California and spent the remainder of his war years flying missions out of 17 different air bases around the U.S. Lowell Field in Colorado was one of them. In 1945, when he came back, he worked for the Lowell Construction Company, where he learned the trade, which he eventually made his living from. In 1959, he bought the Thorpe Lumber Company in Vesterberg, and it became the Vesterberg Lumber Company, along with several other construction-type buildings shortly after. He was a promoter of civic and county development and betterment, forming an 18-man group, which became known as the Vesterberg Rural Area Development Corps, with a purpose of building, maintaining, and planning new schools, helping in any way to draw new industry to the community. In Vesterberg, we used to drive that all through that,
on the way
going
up
to Central.
On the way up to Central, yeah.
Yeah.
Out on the railroad
Yeah.
tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. His efforts started the first Little League program and paved the way for construction of 8 elementary rooms,
Wow.
2 special rooms, and physical education building.
Oh, very
In
cool.
1966, he started a carpentry and building class, which he taught for many years and was a volunteer for the fire department for 40 years. They say that was one of the first kind of Kent skills in Michigan at the time.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
That's
John
very cool.
said, I believe you have to invest in the future of schools to maintain the quality of the community. The schools are the backbone of any community and have to
for
be
sure.
planned right to be worthwhile. Now, when he was in the service, he was an armament specialist. When I went down and did some digging in the museum, Loanne came out with a whole bunch of his patches and dog tags and all kinds of good stuff.
Oh, my goodness.
I'll just do a quick. There'll be pictures on the YouTube of the patches. They're pretty cool. The armament specialist patch was a blue triangle with an orange bomb inside and was worn by personnel who specialized in the armament of aircraft. The blue triangle represented the air, while the bombs signified their specialization in ordnance and munitions. He has a Air Force patch. He was in the 3rd Air Force, which was a blue circle patch was a circle with an orange border, and a 3 and a red dot inside a white star and a blue background. And those will be on the website. Once again, the blue represents the sky. The orange color represents the color of the Air Corps, and the number 3 identifies a specific Air Force, in this case, the 3rd Air Force that he was in. The insignia, also known as the Harp-Arnold emblem, after General Henry H. Arnold, who commanded the U.S. Air Force in World War II. Headquarters patch, which is the star with the gold wings, which your dad has,
Yeah, you do.
So we graduated from Lowell,
Yep.
clearly, because Grandpa and probably Grandma knew him, and then went to Vesterberg, spent most of his life building the community there.
Spent the rest of his life there.
Wow, that's pretty
building the
great.
community.
So Grandpa Frank must have known him too, obviously,
Yeah.
because then he said, in walks, it's like we were right about him being somebody familiar to them.
Yeah.
I mean, really familiar
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, all of
That
that.
sounds like he didn't leave till like 1959 when he bought
Okay.
the lumber company. So
Very
he was
cool.
around town.
Oh,
Very
well,
cool.
yeah. So we got some updates. In our last episode, in addition to talking about Tigers players and John Phelps, we also read letters from Bruce about his new job in Kingman. We're going to start today with a longer letter. We're going to break it up a little bit, but it reveals more about what he's up to in Kingman. Like, what is he doing there now? So this is from April 30th, 1945, in his own words.
Monday night, dear Mom and Dad. I wrote those 4 words, and then the biggest, screwiest looking bug flew towards my light, and I had to cut short his nightlife with the Los Angeles Examiner folded double. I have a nice tight screens on my window, but he must have bored through some from someplace. For your information, Dad, I don't see any snakes now because I'm here at Kingman and not out at Yucca. Guess they've all been chased out of here. I don't even hear any coyotes at night since I'm not living at Vista Saloma. It's been very hot here the last couple of weeks. I went swimming in the pool yesterday and again this afternoon at 4:30. The water's quite cool because they keep it changing all the time, and now I've been back long enough to get straightened around, and I'm enjoying my work as a comm officer very much. I have a roll of film with some of my office gang on it, so I'll send it to Marg, and when I send cigarettes this week, she can get it developed. They're a nice bunch, and I enjoy working with them. I received your big steak dinner, and I'll wait until Wednesday, and then I'll go down to the El Trovatore and get one. The biggest they have, and they're about 3 pounds, ask Jim, cost only about $2.50, so I'll have to drink malteds and see a show in Kingman to spend it all.
3 pounds of steak is $2.50.
Isn't that
That's
crazy?
insane. But
Yeah.
anyway, the bugs, the malteds, the steak. I mean, this right here just is basically like classic Bruce.
It tracks.
Right here.
It
It very
tracks.
much tracks.
Yep.
He doesn't see snakes. He doesn't like bugs. So it definitely tracks. All right, let's keep this letter going. He gets very sentimental as another part of this letter. So in his own words.
You don't know how glad I was to see your handwriting, Mother. You tell me not to worry, but we must all pay in some manner for our loving, and because I love you and Dad so very much, it's only fair that for my love I should have to worry. If you, mother, will only stay in bed when doc says your BP is low enough to get up, you'll be ever so careful. Only then, if you promise this to me, will I cease to worry quite so much. I know that Margs and my party is just the sort of worry you should avoid. Not about your bridge scores, but worry about when the baby comes and take care of things and with company and all. But mother, you've got to realize you can't worry, or we just couldn't be the cause of it. There's any amount of places Marg could go, and knowing her like I do, she'd be glad to if you would spare you any worry or nervousness. Gee, she even wanted to have our baby out here, so you know what a person she is. And that's just because we've planned it this way. There's no reason those plans couldn't be changed. Actually, I know you're saying right now, I hope he doesn't worry about the way it will bother me. Yes, I know you're saying that, and if you promise not to get nervous, tired, and try to help, I know it'll be fine, but you must take it that way. I've asked you for so many things in my life, Mother. Please, if you never grant me another wish, grant me this one, and be very careful. You know, when this is over, we're going to do some flying over the clouds, and high BP would keep you from going up. It's a date we've got to keep, so please do these precautions for me.
Aw, this is so sweet. But it's also maybe telling about how seriously ill Lotta is?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this just maybe Bruce being nervous about being a father himself, or a little bit of both? But
I'm not sure.
it seems very, over exaggerated about you cannot do anything when the baby comes,
Well, she's been struggling with her health the
Yeah.
last couple of years we've been reading these.
Well, and
Yeah.
and because he's having a new baby too, because he's there. I mean, they're going to
Yeah.
be there. He just is feels like he might be imposing. I
Sure.
imagine. So
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, yeah, makes sense.
yeah.
All right, let's finish this letter in his own words.
I'm going to write a letter to Ed and Sue in Chicago, and also Hope, before I go to bed tonight. I received a long letter from Jim today, and I guess from it I can be sure he did have quite a bit of fun, and it's a cinch I'll recommend him as an ideal traveling companion. Don't figure you have to write until you're lots better, and if you want to say anything, just have Mark put it in one of her letters. Because of traffic conditions, I'm going to give up trying to call. If I was in town all the time, I could get through but out here, it's nigh on to impossible. I'll try again on my birthday night. God bless and keep you safe for me. Your loving and grateful son, Bruce.
Yes. So Bruce mentions Ed and Sue from Chicago and Hope, and these are Margaret's family, right? They were ones that came to the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did we say? Hope is her cousin. So Ed and Sue are her aunt and uncle. Was that? Are they different?
No, Hope is her aunt.
Hope is her aunt.
Her aunt, because that's
Okay.
Grandma Marie's sister.
Got it. Okay.
Her mom's sister.
That's right. Okay.
Hope and Susie were her.
Okay.
Were her aunts.
All right. So maybe Hope and Sue are her aunts, and Ed is her uncle or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Because I heard those names and I was like, those are familiar. That's right. We talked about them on one of these episodes when they got married and how they came to Lowell. But that's nice. Well, we're going to get into our segment now where we talk about what was going on in the world and in Lowell in May 1945. And there is a lot going on in these first 2 weeks of May. But we're going to start with important news that came out of Germany on April 30th, 1945, the date of that long letter we just read. Hitler is dead. Dale, what can you tell us about this momentous event of Hitler's death?
Well, I'll start with Hitler's last words.
Okay.
Spoken before his suicide, and you just said the date, April 30th, 1945. I have decided to end my life. He also reportedly added, I'm leaving with a clear conscience.
Oh.
According to the accounts
I didn't know
of
that.
his final moments. His suicide note, written earlier that day, emphasizing defeat of Nazi Germany and the fear of capture and humiliation by the Soviets were major factors leading to Hitler's decision to take his own life. Hitler had also reportedly expressed a desire to avoid being captured and subject to a fate similar to Benito Mussolini,
We talked about that last
who
week.
had
Yep.
been executed and publicly displayed by Italian partisans shortly before. He further stated his wish to be cremated immediately after his death. Adolf Hitler committed suicide by a gunshot in his underground bunker as Soviet forces closed in on the city. While the exact sequence of events leading to this death is debated, it is widely believed that Hitler shot himself, possibly after taking a cyanide capsule. His wife, Eva Braun, also died by suicide around the same time, likely taking cyanide. Hitler's body, along with Braun's, was then reportedly burned outside the bunker to prevent them from falling into the hands of the Soviets. Dental records were later used to confirm Hitler's death. despite early Soviet reports and conspiracy theories suggesting otherwise.
Okay.
So,
We're going to talk more about world events here in a minute because there's more. But in local news, though, the Ledger reported that Bill Lally was liberated from the Stalag 3 prison camp. We, of course, knew this from when his niece Annette was here on the podcast and talking about his story. But we're now finally to the part in the war where Bill has been found, liberated from the camp, and coming back to Lowell. So that's nice, right? So we got April 45, May 45. A smaller thing, but I think notable, the Ledger has been reporting local war updates under a column called News of Our Boys. That's where I read all the stuff about Lowell people in the war, and it was all about Lowell men. And I've been reading this column for over a year, but finally, in May 3rd, 1945 issue of the Ledger, the column was renamed to News of Our Men and Women in Uniform. That's right, about time.
Yes.
They recognized the wax
Yeah.
of Lowell.
There you go.
You know, the women who went off to war. So, and it had new, like, art to feature, like, men and women's little cartoon faces or whatever. I was like, all right, Ledger.
and all the important
Way to update.
work women did it, like Willow Run and building our Air Force. And,
I mean, it took till,
Yep,
like, when the
huge.
war was almost done to change it, but
yeah, well,
but I love it.
But they did.
But they did, so that's good. So this next letter we're going to read is a letter that Bruce wrote to Margaret about a trip he took to Needles, California. It's from May 5th, 1945, in his own words.
Saturday night, my adorable darling. Here 'tis Saturday night again, and I'm singing that same Saturday night is the loneliest night, etc. Gee, I've thought of you constantly today, honey. Your letters came today, 2 of them, and 1 from Bern. Just now I can hear music from the club, and it's only 7:30. Guess they start their parties early since the curfew. Honey, Lieutenant Perry, one of the men in my comm, just came in and wanted one to go for a ride with him. He's waiting while I write this. I'll finish when I come back. Oh boy, am I sleepy. Perry and I drove clear to Needles, that over 60 miles over the mountains towards California. We just poked along about 30 miles an hour. We stopped and had a drink of Coke at the Summit oil station. You know the one I mean, at the top of the mountain. Then we stopped again in Gold Road and then in Needles. We didn't get back until just now, and my wristwatch saying 3:30 a.m. I had a nice time. He's a nice fellow whose wife is in Balboa, California. She's a singer in a band, and they've had a few marital difficulties. He said they were going to get a divorce, but then they both decided they couldn't get along without the other, so they canceled it. Anyway, I listened to him and then started talking about you. Gee, it was swell to have someone listening to my thoughts of you for a change. He now knows you're a swell, gorgeous, beautiful creature. He came back to the room to look at your picture, incidentally. There's no comparison in your beauty and his wife from the way he talked. I know he saw you as I did. Well, I'm fast falling asleep, so until tomorrow, my beloved, your adoring husband worships you, Bruce.
Aw, that's such a weird letter, but cute. I mean,
Yeah. It's wild for, I think maybe it's for me and for Mitch and I. It's kind of crazy to just
is it weird to read that?
thinking
Like
of
a love
those.
note?
Yeah, thinking of those love
Aw,
notes.
That's really cute. We do have, so Bruce's scrapbook actually has pictures of him and Perry from his time in Needles, this little trip out
Excursion?
there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're going to make sure to post those on our socials, and of course, you can see them in our primary source documents on the Lowell Historical Museum website. But yeah, there's several of them in the desert, stopping along on their road trip, or whatever. Just 30 miles an hour. Just, I mean, I guess you don't go not much faster.
Just touring around.
Yeah,
touring around.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, still, no wonder he got back at 3:30 in the morning. Oh my goodness. Well, this next letter gives a little more detail on his job in his own words.
Sunday night. Dear Mom and Dad, well, 'tis Sunday night, and it's been a pretty good Sunday. I remember how you used to say you didn't care too much for Sundays, but Marg's letter on Wednesday said she had so much fun on Sunday last, all about what fun you had together. I received your letter today, Mom, and it was swell to know you felt able to write. But don't, for gosh sakes, try to do too much for a long time, and we'll get that BP back where it should be. Yes, Mom and Dad, I received your card and also had a steak dinner on Tuesday night at the El Trovatore. I wrote to you about receiving it, and by now you probably have the letter. The sunset was beautiful tonight and made the mountains glow with a myriad of colors. Again, I always think of my mom and dad when I see some of the Nature's Beauty shows. Even as I used to think on missions of how you'd get a kick out of the clouds and contrails through them. But that's fast becoming only a bad dream to me. And Dad, I think often like you, how much difference a year makes. Incidentally, ATC means Air Transport Command. My job will probably be communications job at some field here in the States. I expect to get my orders sometime this week. Then I'll immediately wire for a delay en route, and if I get it, I'll see you soon. I'll wire Marg any developments. Also, I'm going to see Raj at any rate, and he'll be on my route east. God bless you both for me, and thank him every day for giving me you. Your loving son, Bruce.
Oh, so this letter indicates that even though Bruce seems like he kind of just got to Kingman maybe a few weeks ago, this is indicating that he might be moving on from Kingman soon. Like he's waiting for another assignment. So, interesting.
Mitch pronounced that El Travatore better than I did.
We talked about this. You looked it up, right? It's
Yeah.
El Travatore?
El Travatore.
All right, I didn't know. I said it like you, Aunt Lori. El Travatore.
Okay.
I have no idea. But again, the place we got to go. Do you think they still have
Steak dinner.
$2.50 steaks?
Yeah, that'd be nice. That would be nice.
Can we get 1945 prices?
Yeah.
But he mentions this other thing. He's Air Transport Command. Either he's doing that now or he's going to do that. Dale, do you know what this is? What's Air Transport Command?
Yeah, the Air Transport Command, or ATC, was a major component of the U.S. Army Air Forces. The ATC was responsible for ferrying newly manufactured aircraft from the United States to overseas bases, a critical task in maintaining air superiority, as well as providing essential support to Allied forces by delivering vital supplies and equipment to combat zones. ATC established routes to various locations, including Europe, the Pacific, and South America, including the famous Hump route over the Himalayas, connecting various theaters of war, demonstrating the command's global reach. They contributed to aeromedical evacuation and other non-combat operations and unified civilian and military air transport operations, streamlining the flow of vital resources. Now, I talked about the Hump, which was very famous route. The most famous airlift operation for the ATC during World War II was the Hump airlift over the Himalayan mountains, known as the Hump. Facing unpredictable weather and lacking navigational aids, they didn't have all the good stuff. The airlift from India to China delivered vital supplies, including food, ammunition, and equipment, to Chinese and American forces in China, bolstering their resistance against the Japanese. The Hump airlift demonstrated the potential of strategic airlift as a viable method for supporting military operations, even when traditional land and sea routes were blocked. The operation was incredibly dangerous, with 549 aircraft and 1,649 crew members lost during that. In essence, the ATC was a critical element in the Allied war effort, enabling the rapid and efficient movement of resources and personnel to where they were most needed, playing a critical role in the eventual Allied victory. So 549, 1,600 men lost to get supplies.
Just
Just
that
over the
hard.
Himalayas.
It's just that one
Wow.
piece.
Wow.
And that was
So-
high altitude where it's
Yeah.
the air's
Sure.
shaky to keep you in the air.
Well, we know Bruce is a communications officer, and so when you talked about that before, it sounds like he's doing a lot of pieces
That,
to this.
actually more than what we talked about last week.
Yeah.
This is kind of more what he was actually doing.
I think so, right? It sounds
because
like
he
it.
was at some of the pictures that you'll see coming up. It says ferrying right on the sign as you come into the placement. So it was known as a ferrying. So he was basically in charge of getting planes to places where they needed to be.
Yeah, picking up
New
equipment.
planes, supplies, and planes to Europe. That was his bag.
Yeah, makes sense.
The one last week was a little more a different branch of that.
Okay.
That
All right. Well, so he's still going to be involved in Air Transport Command,
yeah.
being a communications officer. We just don't know where, and we'll.
and I think he even flew some of the.
Spoiler alert.
He talked about flying some of the new planes right out of
All
somewhere.
right.
It seems
go.
like in
Yeah.
one of the letters he talked
Yeah.
about one of the jobs is he flew a couple planes right out of the factories to wherever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, we're going to finish today with some really big news. But first, we're going to read a letter from Bruce that he wrote in a hotel near Big Springs, Texas. And this letter was written on Mother's Day, May 13th, 1945, in his own words.
Sunday night, 11:30. Dearest Mark, Mom, and Dad, if your ears aren't red, then I know you should tell Doc you're anemic. Yes, for the last 3 hours, we've been talking steadily about home, our parents, and our wives. Gosh, time flies just talking like this. Raj is now reading the Colliers on the bed and will probably add a few lines to this. We wrote some yesterday, but the chambermaid must have thrown it away as we haven't been able to find it. This morning we went to Mass at the post and then tried to get a call through to 103. At 9 we decided to cancel it, so I'll try during the week when I'm at Dallas. Raj is going to go back tomorrow, and I'll head back on the way back to Dallas. He has about 180 miles to go back to Clovis, and then I have about 280 on to Dallas. If I tried tonight to even start talking about all these things, these 3 days have brought to my mind, I wouldn't finish this for a week. So I'll just say goodnight. And Mom, 2 of your sons were with you in spirit this Mother's Day. I'm sending some pictures of Raj and I here in Big Springs. Raj and I here in Big Springs. There are enough to give Bern and Sis's family. Ain't they handsome?
Aw. So Bruce and Roger are together
Yeah.
on Mother's Day, and it seems like they're enjoying themselves, having a great time, chatting it up. There might be another reason for this happiness, because just a few days earlier, before this, on May 8th, the Germans surrendered. It was officially the end of the war in Europe. Not the whole war, but in Europe, still a big deal. Dale, this is known as VE Day. What can you tell us about VE Day?
Well, VE Day, or Victory in Europe Day, commemorates the formal unconditional surrender of Nazi Germany to the Allied forces on May 8, 1945, marking the end of World War II in Europe. This day signifies the end of nearly 6-year conflict that brought immense suffering and destruction to the continent. While it was a day of celebrations with public gatherings, street parties, dancing, singing, bonfires, fireworks, reflection, and Thanksgiving services for the Allied nations, it did not signal the end of the war globally as fighting continued in the Pacific against Japan. VE Day is remembered as a pivotal moment in history, not only for the end of the war in Europe, but also as a symbol of resilience of the human spirit and the triumph of freedom over oppression.
Oh, for sure. So, yeah, war in Europe is finally over. But, like you mentioned, we're still fighting Japan for a few more months. President Truman declared that May 13th, 1945, the day that Bruce wrote this letter about being with Roger, was considered a day of triumph and prayer to celebrate the end of the war in Europe. So maybe that's why Roger and Bruce they went to Mass, and then they're all partying it up.
Yep. Yeah.
So the end of this letter, which is actually from Roger, who he added like a little note at the bottom of Bruce's letter the following day, it seems. So in his own words.
I haven't taken time to read what he wrote, and will give you a detailed account later. I'm only sorry you couldn't know yesterday how we were enjoying Mother's Day, but maybe our prayers at Mass in the chapel have made you aware. We were unusually happy. Love to you all, Roger. Raj.
Yay! I mean, yeah we got to celebrate the end of the war. For sure.
Yeah.
And we have a little hint about where maybe Bruce is going next after this. But yeah, the war is over in Europe, guys. That's it. And we're in the final year of the war in general, and final months, actually, at this point. And we're the final season of our podcast, so we want to take listener questions. We mentioned this before. We have a couple already, but we'll kind of take them one at a time in these last few episodes. And so I have our first listener question for us, so I'm curious what you all think. This is from Amy Lozen, who is Bruce's granddaughter, and she's a friend of the podcast. She and her son, Jack, guested on an episode, if you remember. They read a couple letters, and she wants to know, how have your perspectives, thoughts, or feelings about Grandpa changed since doing this podcast? Ooh, okay, so who wants to go first?
Well, I will, because I think that, when you know somebody as your parent, you think of them as your parent.
Yeah.
You don't have their thoughts and feelings. You don't know any of their thoughts and feelings when they're in their 20s, 29, 30, and then bring it into war, into being this, traumatic. And even in this podcast today, when he said a bad dream, that was all a bad dream. I mean, that's really the first time that we have any indication, because he tried to be so upbeat when he was writing letters when he was in it. And then to come back and know the perspective that, very few. We didn't talk about. We talked about very few of these. I mean, he just didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
So it was. It's almost like there's sometimes it was like basically stuff we didn't know. I didn't have any idea, but that it brings you to thinking about the whole person, like this person. And
Yeah.
and the same thing, Mitch and I have said it several times about how, and the word I use is reverence. I just cannot. It's a different time and place to think about how he feels about his parents. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we loved our parents. I mean,
But I didn't really realize his devotion to him.
no, his devotion to
Yeah.
him, and certainly their faith. I mean, their faith was very strong.
Yeah. Yeah, clearly.
Being
All these
raised
letters,
Catholic, yeah.
This is it was a little bit like we read the last half of the book of Bruce when we lived with him.
Yeah.
And then this podcast has been like reading the first half of the book. It's
Yeah.
really
The prequel.
the prequel.
Before he
yeah,
was your
there's
dad.
So
Well,
much.
Even
So much I
Dad-
learned every week. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
even looking today, thank you, Mark Ritzema, for dropping off the pictures at the house. I mean, I didn't see that. I've never seen that picture of Dad with a tennis racket and a
don't think
white
of him as
sweater.
a 14, 15-year-old kid either. No.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
never. And they look so old. I mean, they look older and mature when they're, I don't know, back in the day. But
Well, that's what I find interesting about you guys found out so much new information about your dad
Oh, yeah.
that
Yeah.
you never even, and Annie has, must be going,
yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been an interesting thing because, he died when I was 17, so I feel like, I knew him for this sliver of my life, right? And so he was always just Grandpa who had Faygo Pop. We've talked about this before, and would bring over, like, Twinkies for us, like, every other week or whatever.
Swiss steak.
So the sweets thing, I was like, well, that tracks even still, but
do you remember Mom? How old were you?
I was 10. I do
When
remember
Mom
that
died,
very much.
okay.
Yeah, I
When
remember
Mom
that
died,
really well.
okay.
That was like the first time someone that I knew had died.
Okay,
That was
yeah.
the first time I'd ever been to a funeral. I
Yeah.
didn't know what even
Oh,
that
sure,
was.
sure.
So that was very that it really sticks in my mind. But I always definitely thought I was more like her. I mean, she was a social studies teacher, right? Like we
Yeah.
bonded over reading books
Oh,
all the
yeah.
time. So
You read
that always
books.
felt like I was more like her. And then doing this podcast, I definitely see a lot of myself in Grandpa too. Like, I mean, just for sure I do. So that's kind of cool. Like I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, this makes a lot of sense. Just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how to even explain it.
CMU,
But
Irish, all of that.
Yeah,
all of
so
that.
some of the things he says and does, and just like his willingness to just think like he was a pilot. He loved being a pilot even before the war, and he saw this is something I can contribute. This is something I could do to help the greater good. So he like used his talents to serve others, and I was like, oh my god, like that's just what I aspire to do all the time. And then here it was like right in front of me. I
very
don't know.
cool. Very
It's
cool.
wild. It's just very,
Yeah.
very, very different to
part of the
think about that.
greatest generation, man.
Yeah.
They were all, those were great people,
Yeah.
fantastic people.
That is
Well,
true.
thanks, Amy, for the question.
Yes,
yeah.
thank you. And yes, and if anyone else has something you want us to answer on air, let us know. I did ask what my youngest daughter if she had a question, and her question was, "How do planes work?" And I was like, "Well, I think you might have misunderstood what this podcast is about." She just, in general, just wanted to know how planes fly, and I was like, "Well."
Dale will answer
I
that
have one question. I have one question. I knew Bruce not well, but Mitch and I
yeah,
hung out up
yeah,
on Reservoir
yeah.
Hill. He was around. Great guy. So was Margaret. All
your dad as well.
the animated McMahons.
Yeah, your mom and dad too.
Everything is
Sure.
dramatic, but I always wanted to know about the famous pancake breakfast
Oh,
that
yeah.
Bruce always put on. Everybody I talk, the older group, like Mike's age, they always talked about the pancake breakfasts at McMahon's.
Oh, yeah. I have
I didn't know this.
lots of memories of those.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, he also did a lot of late night pancake.
Oh, late
stuff.
night
Yeah,
too,
you'd
after ball games or
come
something.
back from the bar even.
Oh, my
next thing,
gosh.
next thing you know, he's making pancakes.
Well, he had the griddle, which was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
that's
He'd
something.
fire that
Every
griddle up
Sunday
on.
though, every Sunday morning, I remember after church, it was like pancakes and does anybody want an egg?
Oh,
Who
yeah.
wants an egg?
That's
so
why I
we'd
like
have an
it.
egg.
We know he likes eggs.
Yeah,
You know,
we
he
had
to go get that from the
had
farm.
eggs, and he always
That was egg and pancake the other day.
That must be part of that group because my dad was like that. He always invited people back to the house for breakfast after.
Yeah, sure.
For eggs and whatever. That must be that part of that whole kind
Yeah.
of community.
He was good.
Type.
He was good with that.
Yeah.
With that.
I'm sure he was like asleep listening to the ball game, but he'd hear us come in, and the next thing you know, he's in the kitchen getting stuff
That I
ready
don't
for
know,
the-
but yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, if there's other, we'll continue to answer questions here and there until we run out of episodes anyway. And so if you have one for us, it can be about what we think, but it can also be, technical details about the podcast or anything. You can send a message to the Letters Home Instagram or the Lowell Historical Museum, and we'll read your question and answer it in a future episode. But that's it for us today. Next week, we talk about Bruce's new job in Dallas, Texas, which is where he was heading from Big Springs with Roger. So thank you for listening to Letters Home. We hope you continue to listen as we go through Bruce's story. You can listen to Letters Home on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Lowell Historical Museum website and YouTube channel. New episodes drop every Thursday. The Lowell Historical Museum has digitized versions of Bruce's letters, so you can read them in full, along with primary sources for most of the people, places, and events we've talked about here today, plus more. You can also follow the Lowell Historical Museum on Facebook and the Letters Home podcast on Instagram at Letters Home Lowell. Thank you to Roger McNaughton for our podcast music and to Lowell Radio for letting us record in their studio at Lowell High School every week. Stream it at lowellradio.org. See you next time.